Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. I represent Brit-Am. Our organisation searches the whereabouts of the lost 10 tribes, and we prove that the lost 10 tribes are now to be found amongst Western nations, that is, the Western nations of Europe, and also the offshoots of those nations. And this includes those of North America and the USA. We identify the USA in our time as a major Israelite nation, possibly the major Israelite nation. We find that the USA to be identifiable according to the Bible and related sources with the tribes of Joseph, especially Manasseh. But in addition to that, within the USA we find elements of all of the tribes. And in certain regions we find expressions of one tribe more than others. And also we have come to the conclusion that each and every state in the USA has its own tribe, one of the tribes that is valid to itself in a special way beyond the overall dominance of the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh in America. So this is correct. This proves itself, as you will see. There's something to it, even if you don't altogether accept our presumption, what we are proposing, what we are proving. We have enough facts and points of interest that are valuable in themselves, that are worth hearing in their own right. And so this is what we have. Presently we're going to discuss the state of Indiana. The state of Indiana. You understand that the state of Indiana is especially pertinent to the tribe of Ephraim. The flag of Indiana is a golden torch with a 5-pointed star above it. And the seal of Indiana depicts a man chopping wood and also a buffalo, a bison, with a saw in his mouth sawing wood. These symbols are reminiscent of the tribes of Joseph. Joseph was the father of Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim and Manasseh, 2 tribes of Joseph. Sometimes described in the Bible as the one tribe of Joseph, sometimes, but usually described separately because they're both powerful tribes in their own right. And the buffalo, the bison, is similar to the bull. And Joseph in the Bible is compared to a bull and also compared to the bull calf. Well, Ephraim, the son of Joseph, especially is compared to a bull calf, the son of a bull. Concerning the bull, the comparison with the bull, Deuteronomy 33 says, Deuteronomy 33 verse 17, his glory is like a firstborn bull, and his horns are like the horns of the ram of the unicorn. Together he shall push the peoples to the ends of the earth. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. And then again we have an association of the bull and the bull calf with Ephraim. Jeremiah 31 verse 18 says, and I've surely heard Ephraim bemoaning himself, you have chastened me, and I was chastened like an untrained bull calf. In Hebrew, a bull calf is an eagle. From this word eagle, as it was pronounced in ancient times, we have the word angle. And the name England comes from this word angle, which was in ancient times written and pronounced as angle, and this gives us the name England. At all events, we have this association of the bull calf with Ephraim. And the verse continues, restore me and I will return for you are the Lord my God. So here we have 2 associations first of a bull, firstborn of a bull, with Joseph in general, with Ephraim and Manasseh together in Deuteronomy 33:17, and then again in Jeremiah 31:18, we have the association of Ephraim with the bull calf. Later on, in the book of Joshua was the successor of Moses. Moses led the Israelites through the wilderness up unto the edge of the promised land. And Moses passed away, and Joshua took over. Moses was from the tribe of Levi, Joshua was from the tribe of Ephraim, and Joshua led the people in conquering the land, and they conquered the land, and they divided it up amongst the tribes, and they gave the portions of the land to Ephraim and Manasseh, and they were supposed to drive out the inhabitants, and they were supposed to drive out the Canaanite inhabitants, as indeed to some degree they did at a later date. But at first there was initial difficulty. They had an initial difficulty in doing this. And they had a problem of where they would dwell, where they would live, and they went to Joshua with this problem, and he told them to go to the forests, to the woodlands that were in their territories, to clear the land and to cultivate it. He says, Joshua 17:17 says, and Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, you are a great people and have great power. You shall not have only one lot. But the mountain country shall be yours. Although it is wooded, you shall cut it down, and its farthest extent shall be yours. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and are strong. So here we have the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh being associated with woodlands, with the forested area, and having to cut it down. And this is what is depicted on the Great Seal, on the seal of the state of Indiana, as well as the bull, or the buffalo, which is similar to a bull, cutting down trees. The capital of Indiana is known as Indianapolis. The population is 6,785,000. The name Indiana means land of the Indians. There are not that many Indians there, but once there were. A native or resident of Indiana is known as a Hoosier. It's not certain what this means, but it could have been meant a backwoodsman, a countryman, or something similar. Now, before the white man came to the area of Indiana, there were American Indians in the area. So one of these groups is interesting, that what is known as the Mississippian Culture, and they were there at a late date, from the 1000 CE until the 1400s CE, not long before the Europeans came, but before the Europeans, and so their culture lasted more than 400 years, and they had cities. The city is laid out according to astronomical calculations and considerations, and plazas and squares and large mounds, and all kinds of sophisticated buildings and designs. They supported themselves through agriculture, and they were quite advanced. But for some reason, this civilization collapsed. The 1400s CE, that is about 100 years before the white man first came, a bit more than 100 years, because America was discovered in 1492, but by the time they got there, by the time they started coming into the area, it took at least another 100 years. At any rate, this cultural development of some of the Amerindians in previous ages is of interest. After the Amerindians, the British conquered the area of Indiana. They took it from the French. First, the French were there. The Indiana is not that far away from Canada. The French were in Canada, in all that region. They had quite a thing there, quite an enterprise going in all that area. And first, the French were there. They had dealings with the Indians. And then the British defeated the French in war, and they took the area, and they intended to leave it all for an Indian reservation. They wouldn't let American colonists come to that area. Actually, the British tried to protect the interests of the Mara Indians. And the American colonists didn't like it. Also, the British apparently wished to turn the area over to the French Canadians. The British had defeated the French in Canada, but they had a large settlement in Quebec, and they wanted to placate them to be on good terms with them, give them an area to develop themselves in. So the British considered giving all of that region to the French Canadians, to the French in Quebec. And the colonists in America did not like that. This is before the American Revolution, and these were some of the grievances that the American colonists had against the British, which resulted in the American Revolution in 1776. After this revolution, Americans came to the area, more Americans came to the area, and immigrants from Europe, from all over, followed them. Most of the immigrants to the region were from Germany, also England and Ireland, where it had sent important contingents, and also from elsewhere. They came from everywhere, but Germany, England and Ireland were the dominant ones. And manufacturing and agriculture were developed. It's a blessed area, a geographically advantageous region. Natural gas was also discovered, and it developed. And they went ahead. Today, the economy of Indiana is based on services, on manufacturing, and to agriculture, but less than it was previously. Indiana has an advantage that it is a highly skilled workforce. It has good workers and a highly skilled workforce, and they have a geographical layout and all kinds of advantages that attracts firms to the region. Firms are often attracted in the USA to areas where there is an available skilled workforce for them to start up with. And that is what Indiana has. Apparently the people are gifted, and they're good workers and skilled ones. The present-day ancestry of Indiana is 22.7 is of German descent. The 12% is of American. By American, it's usually assumed to mean English or Scots-Irish. English ancestry is 8.9, and so is Irish. There's Irish Catholic, 10.8%, and Polish, 3%. So they have a mixture, but British and German are the major inputs to the region. In the 1920s, a branch of the Ku Klux Klan became influential in Indiana. It had 250,000 members. That is 30% of the native-born white men belonged to the Ku Klux Klan. But there were scandals, and there was an exposure of the rape and murder of a white woman by a leading senior Klansman. And the Klan lost prestige and its numbers diminished. After that came the 1930s. In the 1930s, the USA was going through severe economic difficulties. There was a depression. And overseas, you had Japan, Italy and Germany that were threatening international stability, conquering countries, taking over countries, threatening countries and putting the threats into practice. And they were disturbing world peace and disturbing the world, and they're threatening American interests and everyone's interests. So the Germans have begun persecuting the Jews in Germany and everywhere else they were able to do so. And this created a refugee problem. And so some Americans, they wanted to intervene. They wanted to take over. They wanted to have more of an assertive effect in the world to prevent this disturbance that was taking place. But most Americans at that time preferred a policy of isolation. There were also large German-American and American-Irish communities in the USA. And some of these were anti-British and also anti-Jewish, and they were against interfering in the European affairs in what they considered to be a local quarrel between Germany and between Germany and the British and their allies. Nevertheless, there were exceptions, so people saw what was going on and saw the threat that was taking place and realized that something had to be done about this. One of these people was Wendell Willkie. Wendell Willkie, 1892 to 1944. Wendell Willkie was born in Indiana. The father, Willkie, had been born in Germany. His mother was born in Indiana, but to German parents. His grandparents had been involved in the 1948 revolutions in Germany. These revolutions in Germany were mainly instigated by liberals, people wanting a more humane element, a more civilized structure to the rulership and to the state of affairs under which they lived in Germany. And these revolutions failed, and as a result of that, many liberals from Germany left Germany and came to the USA. And a great number of Germans also came at the same time, both for political and ideological reasons and also for economic ones. And there was a big difference between those who left and those who stayed behind. There were even physical differences between them. And we, as we say frequently, we distinguish between those who left and those who stayed behind, and we believe and we understand that those who left had a different ancestry to those who stayed behind. Those who left were descended from Israelites who had been in that region, whereas those who stayed behind belonged to non-Israelite elements who preferred not to leave, to stay where they were with who they were. And this is a possibility. It is borne out by different facts, by different studies. Take it or leave it, it is, the possibility exists. There are parallels to this in other situations. In other studies of history, we find similar events taking place. At all events, Wendell Willkie, Wendell Willkie, he became the Republican candidate for president. He believed in intervention, he believed in support for Britain, maximum possible support for Britain, and he implied intervention against Germany. He challenged Roosevelt for the presidency. President Roosevelt was running for the third time, and he won easily. In the election, he defeated Willkie. The only states that voted for Willkie were Maine, Vermont, Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas. But after that, President Roosevelt persuaded Willkie to come and work for him. And Willkie made 2 wartime foreign trips before he died on behalf of Roosevelt, and Willkie also helped smooth the way for Lend-Lease. Lend-Lease was a legal fiction where in effect the USA gave the fighting countries, that is first Britain and then afterward Britain also Russia, they gave them everything they needed, as much as they needed, or a good portion of what they needed, including tanks, including ships, including war materials, food, anything, comforts. America turned itself into a 24/7 producing machine for the war effort. And up until that time, the US had been suffering from a depression, and suddenly this kick-started the American economy. And all of the underproduction that had laid dormant previous to that, all of that sprang into action. So that America actually received a blessing from it. This push that it gave to the American economy was to carry it through all the way through the war, and after the war, and is still helping America maintain its dominance today. Lend-Lease was one of the factors in the final victory. Willkie died in the course of the war, but he had contributed something to the war effort, and he had inspired Americans to go ahead. Indiana was to become the first Western US state to supply troops to the war effort, and soldiers from Indiana participated in all the war's major engagements. Indiana today is a state that is strongly in favor of Israel. Overseas, that is outside of Israel, we have the Bds Movement. What is the Bds Movement? BDS stands for Boycotts, Divestment and Sanctions. Boycotts, divestment and sanctions against the state of Israel. It is designed to use this tool of boycotts, divestment, that is those who are already invested in Israel, to get rid of their investments, and sanctions, that is barring Israel products against the state of Israel, or to pressure Israel to meet what they consider to be Israel's obligations under international law, which in effect means to disarm itself and to let the Arabs, the Palestinians, take over and do what they are, even more than they are doing at present. And this could endanger the state of Israel altogether, even more than it is endangered at present. And the BDS are in effect anti-Semites, they're anti-Jewish, they're only applying this attitude against the Jews in Israel, Hundreds of nations all over the earth oppress their minorities, do things much worse than Israel does or could do or would imagine them doing. And no one says anything, no one does anything, only because the Jews are Jewish. The people using the false claims made against the Jews as an excuse to be prejudiced against them and to attempt to harm them. So this is the Bds Movement, and Indiana became the second state to pass anti-BDS legislation. They legislated against it. They made BDS measures to be illegal. They followed the example of Tennessee. Tennessee had done this, had passed a similar law about 19 days beforehand. And so Tennessee and Indiana were the first of the American states to pass anti-BDS legislation, helping the State of Israel, protecting the State of Israel, and expressing opposition to the anti-Jewish and anti-Israel Bds movement. So this is what the State of Indiana has done. Indiana has established a historical president with a C in this. Indiana has showed itself to be a forerunner. It has displayed the qualities of Ephraim, of coming forward, of initiating actions when actions need to be initiated, and having noble sentiments. That is what Ephraim has. Ephraim is known as a nobility, and that's what the people of Indiana have. The place names of interest in Indiana include Evansville, Carmel. Carmel is a place in the north, in the region of Haifa, associated with both Manasseh and Issachar. In that region we have Jasper, and we have Albany. Akron was a place in the south. Avon is a place in the north associated both with Naphtali and with Manasseh. We have Bethany, associated with Judah. We have Cadiz, which was an at one stage in Israel, an Israeli outpost in southwest Spain in the Straits of Gibraltar. We have a place named Dana, recalling the tribe of Dana, the tribe of Dan, and Danville, also from Dana. We have another place called Carmel, again recalling Carmel. We have a place called the New Palestine, that is New Israel. A place called North Salem. Salem is another name for Jerusalem. We have a place named Odin, a place named Salem, again recalling Jerusalem. Another place called Zionsville. Zionsville, Mount Zion, is an area identified with Jerusalem. So that is what we have. We have a lot of associations with Israel, and we have points of interest indicating and showing Israeli Hebraic type characteristics. Thank you. May the Lord God of Israel bless you.